I'm sitting here, pen in hand, trying to grasp everything that's happened. A few weeks ago, my life felt pretty stable, you know. I was married to Lisa, a woman who I thought was my partner in every sense. Sure, we had our little arguments, but what marriage does. I was convinced that we were in this for the long haul. But lately, something felt off. Every time I'd come home from work, Lisa would be sitting by the window, staring out like she was waiting for someone. I tried to engage her in conversation, but she'd just give me these half-hearted responses, her eyes drifting back outside. It was like I wasn't even there. And when I'd ask her about it, she'd just brush it off, saying she was tired or lost in thought. I wanted to believe her, but there was this nagging feeling in my gut that wouldn't go away. Things took a turn one Friday night after a long week at work. I was exhausted, looking forward to a quiet evening with my wife. Instead, I came home to find her getting ready to go out. I asked where she was headed, and she snapped at me. "It's just a girl's night, Jake, chill." The way she said it hit me wrong. There was this edge in her voice that I hadn't heard in a while. I tried to push the unease aside, but the more I thought about it, the more suspicious I became. I found myself lying awake in bed, imagining what could be going on. My mind raced with scenarios, each more absurd than the last. I shouldn't have felt this way. We were supposed to be a team, right? Saturday rolled around, and instead of feeling better, I just felt more anxious. I decided to do a little digging. I went through her things, something I hated doing, but I needed to know. That's when I found her phone hidden under a pile of clothes in the laundry basket. She always said she hated clutter, so this was out of character. I picked it up and, against my better judgment, unlocked it. It was surprisingly easy. What I saw shattered my world. There were texts from someone named Mike, full of suggestive messages and plans to meet up. My heart dropped into my stomach as I read through their conversations. She was lying to me, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. All those times she'd brushed me off, all those excuses, they all suddenly made sense. I felt nauseous as I put the phone down, replaying the moments in my head. Every time she'd brushed me off, every time she'd been distant, it was all connected. I couldn't believe Lisa, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, had been cheating on me. I was flooded with anger, disbelief, and a deep sense of betrayal. How could she do this to us? I had to confront her. I thought about how I wanted to approach it. Did I want to scream and yell? Did I want to be calm and collected? In that moment, I opted for the latter. I needed to know what was going on, to hear it from her lips. When she got back from her girls' night, I was standing in the living room waiting for her. My heart raced as she walked in, oblivious. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. "Hey, Jake, I'm back," she chirped, but I could see her falter when she noticed my expression. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. Her smile faded, replaced with a look that was a mix of confusion and dread. "About what?" "About you and Mike." It felt like the air went out of the room. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment I thought I saw panic. "What are you talking about?" she replied, her voice tight. And just like that, I laid it all out. I told her I saw the messages, that I knew everything. The way her face morphed from denial to anger to guilt was almost mesmerizing. "Jake, it's not what you think," she started, but I wasn't about to let her twist the narrative. "That's rich, Lisa. You've been lying to me." The confrontation spiraled into a chaotic exchange of accusations and excuses. She claimed it was just a fling, that she was unhappy, and that I'd pushed her away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had been the one putting in effort. What the hell was she talking about? I felt my heart breaking into pieces, and with every word that came out of her mouth, I could feel the love I once had for her slipping further away. It was clear that this was not just about a simple mistake. This was a betrayal that cut deep. So there I was, standing in the living room, grappling with the realization that my marriage, my life, was crumbling before my eyes. I didn't know what to do. The woman I loved was standing in front of me, but she was also a stranger. The emotional impact was overwhelming. I needed to figure out how to move forward. All I knew was that this wasn't over. I had to make a decision, and I had to make it fast. What would I do next? That question loomed over me like a dark cloud. I needed to find clarity. The confrontation had left me reeling. I watched as Lisa's defensive facade began to crack, revealing anger mixed with guilt. The woman I married, the one I had shared my life with, suddenly felt like a stranger. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I thought I knew about our relationship was a lie. I needed space, time to think, and maybe even a little revenge. After she stormed out, citing that she needed air and that I was overreacting, I was left alone in the living room, surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I paced back and forth, grappling with the whirlwind of emotions. Anger coursed through my veins like fire, and at that moment, I wanted nothing more than to make her feel the way she had made me feel. I grabbed my phone, feeling the urge to call my brother Mike. He was always the voice of reason, someone who could help me navigate through the darkness. I needed to talk to someone who could see things from a different angle, someone who wouldn't sugarcoat anything. He picked up on the first ring, and I wasted no time diving into the chaos. "Jake, what's going on?" he asked, the concern evident in his voice. "Lisa's cheating on me with some guy named Mike." I found texts on her phone. I blurted out, my words tumbling over one another. "Damn, man, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" He sounded genuinely upset. "I don't know, I feel like I'm suffocating. I want to confront him to make him feel what I'm feeling right now," I said, half joking, but it felt good to voice the anger that was swirling inside. "Revenge isn't the answer, Jake. You need to think about what's best for you, not what will hurt her," Mike replied. I didn't want to hear it, but deep down I knew he was right. I needed to channel this anger into something constructive. The thought of revenge lingered in my mind, though. I wanted Lisa to understand the pain she had caused me, the heartache. After hanging up, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The evening air felt refreshing against my skin as I strolled through the neighborhood. I needed to think about my next steps. Was there a way to salvage our marriage? Did I even want to? As I walked, I couldn't help but replay every moment of our relationship in my mind. The good times, the laughter and love, all overshadowed by this betrayal. I remembered how we used to dream about our future together, sharing jokes and little gestures that made our marriage feel solid. But now those memories felt tainted, like a beautiful painting smeared with ugly colors. I headed back home, feeling more determined. I needed to confront Lisa again, not just about the affair, but about our entire relationship. I was tired of the lies, tired of being in the dark. If we were going to work through this, she needed to be completely honest with me. No more excuses, no more deflection. When I got back, the house felt eerily quiet. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, each tick reminding me of the time wasted in deceit. I sat on the couch, waiting for Lisa to return, but the minutes dragged on. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, hoping it would numb the anxiety building inside me. Finally, the front door opened, and there she was, looking disheveled and unsure. The confidence she had when she stormed out seemed to have vanished. I could see it in her eyes, fear, guilt, and maybe even a hint of remorse. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, we can talk," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We sat down, and I could feel the tension rising again. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to lay everything on the table. "I want to understand why you felt the need to betray me. What was going on in your mind?" Her expression shifted, and she started to ramble about feeling neglected, that I didn't pay enough attention to her needs. It was all the same excuses I had heard before, but this time it felt different. This time, it was laced with desperation. "Lisa, you can't just justify cheating like this. You could have talked to me. I would have listened," I said, my voice rising. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Instead, you chose this. You chose to hurt me in the worst way possible." I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. I watched her as she broke down, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sympathy. But then I remembered the texts, the lies, the betrayal. I didn't want to feel sorry for her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. We went back and forth, each argument revealing more cracks in our once solid foundation. I finally made it clear I wasn't ready to forgive her, not yet. I needed more time to process everything. As the night wore on, I realized I had a decision to make. I couldn't just wallow in this mess forever. I had to decide what the next steps would be for me, whether to fight for the marriage or to let it go. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads with no clear path ahead. My heart was heavy with uncertainty, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let her betrayal define me. I would emerge from this stronger no matter what it took. And so began my journey toward clarity and resolution. What would I do next? The answer was still shrouded in darkness, but I was ready to find the light. After that night, everything felt different. Lisa and I were living in the same house, but it was like we were two strangers sharing a space. The tension was palpable, and every time I saw her, I was reminded of the betrayal. I needed to make a decision and fast. I spent my days at work trying to focus, but the distraction was nearly impossible. My mind would wander back to Lisa, to the texts, to the lies. I had to know more about this guy, Mike. Who was this man who had invaded my life and taken my wife's attention away from me? I felt a surge of determination to find out everything I could. I decided to do some digging, the kind of digging I had hoped I wouldn't have to do. I had Lisa's phone records from our shared account. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed the truth. The idea of confronting her again without all the facts felt wrong. I picked up my phone and accessed the account online. As I scrolled through her call logs, I saw his name pop up more frequently than I'd ever expected. It was alarming to see just how many times she'd called and texted him. My heart raced with each entry, and I could feel my anger bubbling to the surface. It wasn't just an affair, it was a full-blown relationship with someone who had taken my place. I found myself on social media looking up Mike. I needed a face to go with the name. As I scrolled through his profile, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, jealousy, and an overwhelming desire to confront him. He looked like the kind of guy who would take advantage of a situation. I couldn't help but feel that he took pleasure in knowing he was stealing my wife away from me. The more I dug, the more I uncovered. Mike was a mutual friend, someone I had even met a few times at parties. I remembered him as charming and flirtatious, but I had never suspected he'd be this kind of person, the kind who would betray another man like this. I knew then that I had to confront him. I wanted to understand how he could so easily cross the line. I wanted him to know that I was aware of what was happening. It was time to take action. The following evening, I found myself at a bar I knew Mike frequented. I sat at the end of the bar, nursing a drink, my heart racing with anticipation. I watched as people came and went, but my focus was solely on him. The moment he walked in, I felt a rush of adrenaline. He looked relaxed and unbothered, chatting with friends, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath and made my way over to him. "Mike," I said, my voice steady but tense. He turned, surprised to see me. "Jake, hey man, what's up?" The casualness of his tone infuriated me. "We need to talk." His smile faded as he studied my expression. "About what?" "About you and Lisa." The color drained from his face as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Look, man, it's not what you think. Don't even try to lie to me," I interrupted, my anger boiling over. "I know everything. I saw the texts. You think you can just waltz in and take my wife? What kind of person does that?" He looked defensive but also uneasy. "It just happened, Jake. We've been talking and I guess there was a connection. It wasn't planned." "That's bullshit," I shot back. "You know exactly what you did. You crossed a line, and I want you to understand how wrong it is." The tension in the air was thick. I could see him wrestling with his emotions. "Look, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know you guys were having problems." I scoffed at that. "That's convenient, isn't it? You're telling me you didn't notice when she was spending all that time with you instead of me." "I honestly didn't think," he started to say, but I cut him off again. "Did you ever think about what would happen if I found out? Did you think I would just sit back and let you take her?" He looked like a deer caught in headlights. "I didn't want any of this to go down like this, man, I swear." "Spare me the excuses," I said, my voice rising. "You need to realize that there are consequences for your actions. You're not just going to walk away from this." We exchanged more heated words, each one more pointed than the last. By the time I stormed out of the bar, I felt a mix of victory and frustration. It was good to confront him, but it didn't change the reality of my situation. Lisa had chosen to betray me, and there was no going back. When I got home, I found Lisa sitting on the couch, waiting for me with an anxious look on her face. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. "I was out," I replied curtly. Out where, with who? I could see her getting agitated, and suddenly I was the one in control. I was with Mike. Her expression shifted from concern to confusion. What do you mean, with Mike? Why would you be with him? I took a deep breath, ready to unleash everything I had just learned. I confronted him about you. I wanted him to know how wrong he is for what he's done. Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought I saw a glimmer of fear. Jake, please, stop, I interrupted, raising a hand. You're not going to talk your way out of this anymore. You need to face the reality of what you've done. I won't let you manipulate me into feeling sorry for you. I could feel the anger and hurt pouring out of me, and it felt liberating. I had taken a step towards reclaiming my power, and that felt good. I wasn't going to be her victim anymore. The confrontation with Mike had only intensified my resolve. I knew I had to make a decision about our marriage, and I was starting to see things more clearly. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about finding my own strength and determining what I wanted for my future. I had a long way to go, but I felt like I was finally on the right track. The dark cloud hanging over me was beginning to lift, and I was ready to take the next step, whatever that might be. I could no longer allow her betrayal to define me. It was time to reclaim my life. The days following my confrontation with Mike and Lisa felt like a blur. I was caught in a cycle of anger, confusion, and determination. Each morning, I would wake up feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me, but with each passing day, I began to see a flicker of hope. I knew I had to make a decision about our marriage, but I wasn't ready to jump into anything yet. I spent my days at work focusing on my tasks, keeping myself busy to avoid thinking about my home life. But come evening, the reality would hit me like a wave crashing down. Lisa and I would sit in the same room together, but the silence that hung between us was deafening. There was no longer any warmth, just a cold distance that felt hard to breach. I often found myself reflecting on our relationship. I recalled the early days when everything felt effortless, the laughter, the support, the love we shared. But now, it felt like those moments were overshadowed by betrayal. I needed clarity, a way to figure out what I truly wanted going forward. I decided to reach out to a therapist. I had heard that talking to a professional could help people navigate their feelings, and honestly, I wasn't sure how to process everything on my own. After a few phone calls, I managed to schedule an appointment for the following week. It felt like the right step, a way to find perspective amidst the chaos. In the meantime, I also took the opportunity to talk to a few close friends about what was happening. I wasn't ready to share every detail, but I needed to get it off my chest. I started with Sarah, a friend from college who always seemed to have a level head. One evening, we met for coffee at our favorite cafe. As we sat down, I could already see the concern etched on her face. "You look stressed, Jake. What's going on?" she asked, her voice gentle. I took a deep breath, not sure how to start. "It's about Lisa. I found out she's cheating on me." Her eyes widened in shock and then softened with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. How are you holding up?" "I don't know. I'm angry, but I'm also just so confused. I thought we were happy. I thought we were in this together." She nodded understandingly. "It's normal to feel that way. Betrayal shakes your foundation. Have you talked to her about it?" I confronted her, and she's been trying to defend herself, saying she felt neglected, but it feels like such a weak excuse. "It is," she replied firmly. "You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who values your relationship." Talking to Sarah brought some relief, and by the time we finished our coffees, I felt a little lighter. I realized I needed to focus on myself and my well-being. I didn't want to be consumed by anger. I wanted to regain my sense of self. That evening, I returned home feeling somewhat empowered. Lisa was sitting on the couch, scrolled on her phone, but when she noticed me, she put it down and looked up. "How was your day?" she asked, her tone trying to sound casual. "Better," I replied, not wanting to get into specifics. She hesitated before asking, "Are we going to talk about this, about us?" "Eventually," I said, trying to be non-committal while still maintaining a level of control. "Jake, I know I messed up. Can we at least try to work through this?" Her voice was tinged with desperation. I looked at her, searching for the right words. "I think we need to take a step back. I'm going to be seeing a therapist, and I want you to consider doing the same. We need to unpack what led us here." Her expression shifted to one of confusion and frustration. You think I'm the only one to blame? I wasn't the only person in this marriage. That's not what I'm saying, I countered, trying to keep my cool. But you need to take responsibility for your actions. I can't just pretend everything is fine. The conversation spiraled into a debate about what went wrong, and while her excuses frustrated me, I felt a sense of control. I was no longer just absorbing the pain, I was pushing back. I was taking the first steps to reclaim my power. As the week progressed, I found myself reflecting more and more on the nature of our relationship. I had always believed that love should be unconditional, but now I was questioning everything. Should I forgive her? Should I fight for our marriage? Or was it time to let go? When it came time for my therapy appointment, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I had never been to therapy before, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Would it help me make sense of what was happening? I walked into the therapist's office, and the calming atmosphere enveloped me. The therapist, Dr. Morgan, was warm and inviting, and I could already feel myself relaxing as we started to talk. Tell me about your situation, she encouraged. I took a deep breath and began to share my story. I recounted my suspicions, the discovery of Lisa's affair, and the confrontation that followed. I could feel the emotions bubbling to the surface as I spoke, but Dr. Morgan listened intently, nodding as I shared my experiences. Have you thought about what you want moving forward? She asked gently. I'm not sure, I admitted. I want to feel whole again, but I can't help but think about the betrayal. She nodded. That's completely understandable. You're grappling with a significant loss, and it's important to give yourself time to heal. It's okay to prioritize your well-being. Dr. Morgan helped me to unpack the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. We discussed the importance of setting boundaries and the need to communicate openly with Lisa about how I was feeling. I realized that healing would take time, and I had to allow myself to grieve the loss of the relationship I thought I had. By the end of the session, I felt a sense of clarity. I was beginning to see that I had options that didn't involve just reacting out of anger or pain. I could take my time to process everything and make a decision that was right for me. Returning home, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. I still had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, I felt like I was moving in the right direction. I didn't know what the future held for my marriage, but I was ready to face it head on. As I got ready for bed, I decided that the next step would be to have a real conversation with Lisa. There were still many questions that needed addressing, mistakes that needed acknowledging, and ultimately, a decision that needed to be made. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, but I was willing to listen and see if she was willing to truly confront the damage that had been done. It was time to lay everything out on the table, and I hoped that this time, Lisa would be honest. The journey toward healing was just beginning, and I was ready to take the first steps. The next few days were filled with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. I wanted to have that conversation with Lisa, but I wasn't sure how to approach it. Every time I thought about sitting down with her, I felt both the weight of my emotions and the need for clarity. I knew we had to talk about what had happened, but I also had to be prepared for whatever direction the conversation might take. Finally, on a quiet Friday evening, I decided it was time. The house was calm, and I could hear the distant sounds of the neighborhood settling into its weekend routine. I called Lisa to the living room, my heart racing as I prepared for what could be one of the most important conversations of our lives. Lisa, can we sit down and talk? I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. She looked at me, a mixture of apprehension and hope on her face. Yeah, of course, she replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her nervousness. We settled onto the couch, the familiar space feeling foreign. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. I think we need to address what happened between us, and I need to hear the truth from you. Her expression shifted slightly, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of fear. I know I've made mistakes, but Jake, I want to fix this. I was feeling lost and it got out of hand, she began, her voice trembling. I held up a hand, needing to interrupt her before the excuses started pouring out. Before you go on, I need to make something clear. I'm not here to assign blame or to hear you justify your actions. I need to understand why you felt it was okay to betray me, to lie to me. I want to know the real reason behind your affair with Mike." She swallowed hard, and I could see her grappling with the truth. "I felt neglected. You were working late so often, and when we were together, it felt like we were just going through the motions. I thought I was losing you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Losing me?" I echoed incredulously. "Lisa, I was trying to provide for us. But instead of talking to me about it, you turned to someone else. That's not a solution, that's a betrayal." "No, and I'm sorry," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't think it would go this far. I thought it was just a way to feel something again, to feel desired." My heart ached as I listened to her words. I wanted to understand, but the pain of her actions still sat heavily on my chest. "You say you felt neglected, but I was doing everything I could to show you I cared. What you did wasn't just a mistake. It hurt me deeply. It tore apart the trust we built over the years." "I know," she said, wiping away a tear. "I never wanted to hurt you. I made a terrible choice, and I own that. I want to make it right. I want us to go to therapy together to work through this if you're willing to." The idea struck me like a bolt of lightning. Therapy together. Could that actually help us? I had been considering individual therapy for myself, but perhaps this was an opportunity to rebuild something, to dig deeper into what had gone so terribly wrong. "I'm willing to try," I said cautiously, weighing my words. "But I need to see commitment from you. No more lies, no more excuses. If we're going to make this work, we need to be open and honest with each other." She nodded frantically, desperation etched on her face. "I promise, Jake. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can change. I don't want to lose you. I love you." Her words hung in the air, and I had to take a moment to process them. Could I trust her again? It was a daunting thought, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to fully embrace it. "I don't know if love is enough right now," I admitted. "But I'm willing to explore this with you. I need to see real effort on your part." "Of course. I'll do everything I can, just give me a chance," she pleaded, her voice cracking. I took a deep breath, feeling the tension between us start to ease. "Let's take it one step at a time. We should start therapy soon, and we can go from there. But I need you to understand that this isn't going to be easy. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight." "I understand. I'm ready for the hard work," she said, her tone earnest. That night marked a small but significant turning point in our relationship. We talked for hours, sharing our feelings, fears, and hopes for the future. It was raw and uncomfortable, but it felt cathartic. I began to see a glimmer of the woman I fell in love with, the one who was willing to fight for us. As the days turned into weeks, we began attending therapy sessions together. Dr. Morgan guided us through various exercises and discussions that forced us to confront our feelings head-on. It wasn't easy, often painful, but I could feel the barriers between us starting to come down. Through therapy, I learned that Lisa's betrayal stemmed from a place of insecurity and fear, while I had been retreating into work to cope with my own feelings of inadequacy. We both had parts to play in the disintegration of our relationship, and acknowledging that was the first step towards healing. Each session brought us closer together, but there were still moments of tension. I would catch myself holding back, afraid to fully trust again. Lisa would sometimes become frustrated with my hesitance, but we were learning to communicate better, to express our emotions without fear of judgment. There were times when I would replay the moments of betrayal in my mind, feeling the anger surge within me again. But with each passing week, I began to understand that holding onto that anger would only hurt me more. I had to find a way to let it go, for my own peace of mind. As the seasons changed, I realized that my perspective on our marriage had shifted. I wasn't ready to declare that everything was perfect, but I could see a path forward. Lisa had made a terrible mistake, but she was willing to do the hard work to make things right. In the end, I knew that forgiveness would be a process, not an event. I had to give myself the grace to heal while also allowing her the opportunity to prove her commitment to our marriage. And so, as we continued our journey together, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. We were no longer just two people sharing a house. We were partners, working together to mend the wounds that had threatened to tear us apart. I still didn't know what the future held, but I was willing to embrace it, one step at a time. The journey toward healing had just begun, and I was ready to face it head-on. As the weeks rolled into months, our sessions with Dr. Morgan began to feel like a lifeline. Each meeting forced us to confront not only the betrayal but the underlying issues that had been festering in our marriage long before Lisa's affair. It was painful, but each time we left her office, I felt as though we were slowly chiseling away at the stone wall between us. One evening after a particularly intense session, Lisa and I decided to grab dinner at our favorite restaurant. The air was charged with a mix of hope and nostalgia as we sat across from each other. We ordered our usual dishes, and for the first time in a while, we laughed genuinely over shared memories. I remember that time we tried to cook together and almost burned down the kitchen, she said, her eyes sparkling. Yeah, and we ended up ordering takeout because we were too scared of what we might create, I replied, smile creeping onto my face. In that moment, it felt as if we were beginning to bridge the gap that had grown so wide between us. But even in the lightness of the evening, I felt a familiar shadow creeping in, the fear of slipping back into silence, of losing her again. Lisa, I started, hesitant to shift the tone of the evening. Do you really think we can get through this? Her expression grew serious and she leaned in closer. I believe we can, Jake. I know I've hurt you and I can't take that back. But I'm committed to fixing this. I've never wanted to lose you. I've been afraid, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Afraid that I'll always see you through the lens of betrayal. It's hard to shake that off. I understand, she said softly, reaching for my hand. I'm here for the long haul and I'll keep showing you that I mean it. I want us to rebuild trust. We spent the rest of dinner talking about what that would look like. We discussed boundaries, expectations, and the importance of communication. It was enlightening, and for the first time, I felt a sense of clarity about our future together. As the night wrapped up, I realized that while there would always be scars from the betrayal, there could also be growth. I was starting to let go of my anger piece by piece. It wasn't easy, and I knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but I was willing to work toward it. In therapy, we were learning how to prioritize each other's needs and how to express our feelings without cascading into arguments. Lisa was opening up about her insecurities, the reasons why she had strayed, and I was beginning to understand her better. One particular session, Lisa spoke about her childhood and the pressures she felt growing up. It illuminated some of her actions, and by the end of that session, I found myself with more compassion than anger. I could see the vulnerable side of her, the girl who simply wanted connection. Months turned into a year, and although our journey was filled with ups and downs, we learned to navigate the complexities of rebuilding our relationship. We attended couples retreats and worked on exercises that helped us communicate better. Slowly, but surely, we began to bond over shared experiences rather than letting the past define us. One evening, I surprised Lisa by taking her to the same restaurant where we had our first date. It felt like a significant moment, a step toward a new chapter in our lives. As we reminisced about the early days of our relationship, I could see the spark igniting between us again. There were no guarantees, but I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. It was a fragile hope, but it was there. Jake, she said, looking deeply into my eyes, I know I can't change the past, but I'm so grateful that you're willing to give us a chance. I love you and I'm committed to being better. I love you too, Lisa. It's been a long road, but I'm willing to walk it with you, I replied sincerely. As we left the restaurant that night, I felt lighter. The shadows that once loomed over our relationship were slowly beginning to fade, replaced by the promise of a deeper connection. While I still had moments of doubt, I knew that the journey ahead wouldn't just be about healing the wounds of betrayal. It was about forging a stronger foundation together. I realized that love was not just about perfection or the absence of mistakes. It was about resilience, growth, and the willingness to face challenges as a team. Looking back, I understood that this experience had taught me invaluable lessons. I learned that trust could be rebuilt, that vulnerability could open doors to deeper connections, and that love, when nurtured, could blossom even in the aftermath of pain. As we walked hand in hand, the future felt uncertain, but it also felt beautiful and full of promise. Together, we were writing a new story, one of forgiveness, resilience, and unyielding love.